When Clara's newborn son is rushed into the NICU just hours after birth, her world is turned upside down. Struggling with postpartum exhaustion and the panic of a premature delivery, Clara finds herself constantly defending the hospital's strict policies: no outside food, limited visits, sanitized environments, especially against her own overbearing parents. But things take a devastating turn when her parents, ignoring every warning, smuggle food into the sterile unit, putting not only her baby at risk but also causing a major scene. When the staff enforces the rules and limits visitation, her parents lash out, not at the hospital, but at Clara, blaming her for everything. Heartbroken and emotionally drained, Clara makes the most painful decision of her life. Her parents will not be allowed to meet their grandson in person. Now, they only know him through a single photograph Clara sends once a week. But what Clara doesn't know is that this boundary will unravel a chain of buried resentments, old secrets, and unexpected allies, forcing her to confront not just their betrayal, but a truth she's avoided her entire life. This is a story of protection, guilt, and the quiet but powerful act of choosing your child even when it means standing alone. The hum of machines was the only sound Clara could hear in the sterile silence of the NICU. Her son, barely 3 pounds, lay inside a temperature-controlled incubator, surrounded by tubes, sensors, and blinking monitors. She hadn't even held him yet, not really, just a brush of her finger against his impossibly small hand through a hole in the plastic casing. His name was Elias. She had chosen it while still in labor, between contractions. When the fear was already beginning to settle in her bones, she stood beside him, unmoving, her hospital bracelet still snug around her wrist. It had been 5 days. 5 days since she gave birth. 5 days of living in this limbo, where time didn't pass the way it used to. Her mother's voice had shattered the quiet earlier that morning. Loud, angry, familiar. Clara had warned her parents repeatedly. The NICU had rules. No outside food, no lingering visits. Sanitize everything. But her father had walked in carrying a bag of takeout. Greasy, fragrant, warm. Her mother followed, complaining about the wait, the ridiculous restrictions, and how the nurses were treating them like criminals. Clara had tried to stop them. She had stepped into the hallway, whispering, begging. But her mother had brushed past her. "You're being dramatic, Clara. He's a baby, not glass. He needs his family." Security had been called. The nurses had intervened. Her parents had been escorted out. Clara had stood there, humiliated, horrified, and trembling. She barely remembered the exact words exchanged, only that when it was over, the nurse who had been kindest to her put a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "They won't be allowed back." Her mother called that night. Furious. "You did this," she hissed. "You always wanted to push us out, and now you have the perfect excuse." Clara didn't argue. Not because it wasn't a lie, but because she didn't have the strength. She ended the call, sat on the edge of her hospital bed, and cried into a towel to avoid waking the other mothers in the shared room. Now, she stood in front of Elias again, watching the rise and fall of his chest. She whispered through the plastic, telling him stories, making promises she wasn't sure how to keep. "I'll protect you," she said, "even if it means being the villain in someone else's story." Later that afternoon, she sent the photo. Just one. A single, quiet image of Elias sleeping, his tiny hands curled into fists, his skin flushed with effort. The caption read, "He's stable today." There was no reply, not from her mother, not from her father, just silence. Clara didn't expect forgiveness. She didn't even want it. What she wanted, what she needed, was for them to understand that this wasn't about punishment. This was about safety. About the rules they broke. About the line they crossed without a flicker of remorse. That night, as she tried to rest, in the recliner, beside Elias' incubator, a nurse approached with a clipboard. She smiled softly. "You've been approved for a sleep room," she said. "Just one night. You need rest." Clara hesitated, then nodded. Her legs ached. Her back screamed. The room was only down the hall, but when she returned early the next morning, her heart stopped. There was someone standing at Elias' incubator, not a nurse, not a doctor, a woman, holding a phone, smiling, and Clara had never seen her before in her life. Clara's body moved before her mind could catch up. She was suddenly at the glass, banging it with her palm. Startling the stranger who had been leaning in too close to Elias' incubator, the woman turned with a flinch, her expression twisting between guilt and confusion. "Who are you?" Clara snapped, her voice loud enough to draw a nurse's attention down the corridor. The woman stepped back quickly, almost dropping her phone. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, but Clara wasn't listening. She was already pressing the emergency call button on the wall, her eyes locked on the woman's face. Pale skin, faded pink lipstick. Early 40s, maybe. She wasn't wearing hospital credentials, no visitor's badge. Nothing. The nurse came rushing in. "Ma'am," she said sharply to the woman. "You're not authorized to be here. Who let you in?" "I was told, someone said it was okay," the woman stammered. I'm a family friend." Clara shook her head. "I don't know her. She's not with me." Within minutes, security arrived. The woman was escorted out, protesting softly, as though she couldn't quite believe she was in trouble. Clara watched, her body stiff and cold. Her arms ached to hold her son, to pull him out of that incubator and away from every possible danger, but all she could do was stand there, helpless. As the nurse checked Elias' vitals and made a note on his chart. Later, Clara sat in the hospital's family room, staring at her phone. Her mother had posted a new photo to Facebook. It was Elias' picture, the one Clara had sent. And beneath it, a caption, "Can't wait to hold you soon, baby boy. Grandma's here." There were already dozens of comments, heart emojis, prayers. Distant relatives asking when they'd get to visit. Clara felt her lungs tighten. She clicked on the profile of one of the commenters, a woman named Sylvia. Same face, same lipstick. The stranger from the NICU, her mother, had sent her. Behind Clara's back. After everything, she should have seen this coming. Her mother had always blurred lines, always believed that if rules didn't suit her, they didn't apply. Boundaries were personal insults. Consequences were injustices. Clara stood up and walked straight to the nurse's station. "I want to update the list," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Only my husband and I, no one else is allowed near him. Not even in the hallway. Not unless I say so." The charge nurse nodded solemnly. "We'll make the note. No visitors without your consent." It was that word, consent, that stuck in Clara's throat as she walked back toward the NICU. The idea that it had taken this long, this many violations, for someone to finally say it out loud. She sat beside Elias again, her hand pressed gently against the plastic. He was breathing steadily. No alarms, no red lights. But her phone buzzed again. A text, from her father. "You're creating enemies where there don't need to be any." She just wanted to see him. "Your mother is devastated." Clara didn't reply. She looked at Elias and whispered, "They keep saying it's about love. But love isn't supposed to feel like invasion." She hadn't even told them everything. About the birth. About the complications. About the night she thought she might lose him before even seeing his face. And now this. That evening, as she scrolled through her inbox, she saw an email she almost missed. It was from the hospital's legal department. Standard protocol. It read, to document any security breaches in the NICU. But one line made her stop. Please confirm whether the individual identified as Sylvia Martin is to be permanently restricted from the maternity ward. Clara stared at it. Permeate, it sounded harsh, but as she looked back at Elias, a thought settled in her mind, clearer than anything she'd felt in weeks. Maybe harsh was exactly what was needed. She clicked reply. Then, just before hitting send, she received another message. This one from her mother. A single sentence. "If you think this ends with a photo, you don't know me at all." Clara stared at the message, her fingers frozen above the screen. "If you think this ends with a photo, you don't know me at all." She read it again, slowly, like each word might change meaning, if given more time. She did know her mother, too well, and that's what terrified her. This wasn't over. Her mother wasn't the type to accept limits. Especially not from her own daughter. Especially not when she believed she was owed something. Clara tucked her phone into her bag and looked over at Elias. He was asleep, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. His tiny mouth twitched as if dreaming. Maybe he was, maybe even at a few days old, he knew what it meant to feel secure. Maybe she'd done something right, but the calm was temporary. Clara could feel it in her gut. The next storm was coming. That night, she made a decision. She wouldn't go back to the sleep room. She would sleep beside Elias, in the NICU recliner, spine twisted, legs cramping if necessary. She wouldn't risk another stranger standing over him. No more family friends. No more blurry lines. The nurse on shift understood. She brought Clara a blanket, a cup of lukewarm tea, and a quiet look that said everything without needing words. By morning, Clara's phone had exploded with messages. Not from her mother this time, but from cousins, aunts, and old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. They were all saying versions of the same thing. What's going on with your parents? Your mom's been posting some intense stuff. Do you want to talk? Clara's stomach turned as she opened the posts. Her mother hadn't just shared the photo. She had written paragraphs, long, dramatic updates painting herself as a grieving grandmother denied her rightful place, describing Clara as emotionally unstable and dangerously isolated, hinting that she was unfit, that the hospital should be concerned. And people believed her. Not all, but enough. The comment sections were filled with sympathy, pity, subtle accusations. Clara's breath hitched. This wasn't just family drama anymore. Her mother was building a narrative, one where Clara was the villain, and she, the victim. One where Elias was a stolen grandchild, and Clara, the gatekeeper to be overcome. She turned to the nurse on shift. Can I speak to someone from social work? An hour later, Clara sat across from a tired-looking woman with a clipboard and kind eyes. She explained everything, not just about the food, or the visit, or the photo, but the years that came before. The patterns. The manipulation. The way her mother shifted blame like it was instinct. The shouting. The silence. The cold threats disguised as concern. I'm not trying to punish them, Clara said, her voice cracking. I just want to feel safe. I want him to be safe. The social worker nodded. You're his mother. You decide who's safe. Not them, not anyone else. By the time Clara returned to Elias, her hands were still trembling, but something inside her felt steadier, like she'd planted a flag she never thought she was allowed to raise. That evening, she posted something herself. No photo, no hashtags, just words. Sometimes protecting your child means breaking someone else's illusion of entitlement. I won't apologize for doing what's right, even if it makes me the villain in someone else's story. She didn't expect it to go far. But within hours, the post had taken off. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. Some supportive, others angry, and many, from strangers who saw themselves in her story. But then came a private message from someone unexpected, her aunt, her mother's estranged sister. Call me. There's something you need to know. Your mother's done this before. To someone else in the family. And it didn't end well. Clara stared at her aunt's message for a long time before dialing the number. Her thumb hovered over the green call button. This was someone she hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade, not because of any fight between them, but because her mother had made it so. Her mother had always said Aunt Janice was dramatic, unstable, jealous. Clara had believed it at the time, or maybe she'd just never questioned it. The call rang twice before Janice picked up. I wasn't sure you'd call, she said, her voice calm but edged with something tight. Maybe regret, maybe fear. I need to know, Clara said. You said she's done this before. There was a pause. Then Janice sighed. It was my daughter, Emily, your cousin. You don't remember much, because you were little, but she was born with a heart defect. We were in and out of hospitals for months. And your mother, Clara, she made it about herself. She visited uninvited. Questioned my choices. Posted photos without asking. When I finally asked her to stop, she told the rest of the family I was having a breakdown, said I was exaggerating, that I didn't know how to care for my own child. Clara closed her eyes. Her stomach flipped. She said the same about me, Clara whispered. Janice went on. Eventually I had to cut her off. I told the hospital. She wasn't allowed near Emily. The fallout was awful. I lost half the family. But I got peace. And I kept Emily safe. Clara didn't realize she was crying until she felt the tears touch her lips. She's posting that I'm unstable. Clara said. That the hospital should intervene. People are starting to whisper. Janice's voice hardened. Don't let her twist this. Clara, you're a good mother. You're doing what I didn't do soon enough. Clara thanked her and ended the call with shaking hands. The connection, the pattern was undeniable now. It wasn't about a single incident. It was about control. And when Clara dared to challenge that control, her mother did what she always did. Rewrote the narrative, made herself the victim, and Clara the problem. The next morning, Clara sat with Elias through his morning check. The pediatric specialist gave her a small smile. He's stable again today. Weight's slowly coming up. Lungs are working a little harder on their own. Clara nodded. When can I hold him? The nurse looked at the chart. Maybe tomorrow, if he keeps improving. Clara's Chest tightened with something between hope and terror. The idea of holding him, finally, fully felt both sacred and dangerous. Like allowing herself to believe in something too soon. As she sat back down, her phone buzzed. It was an email from a journalist. "I've seen your recent post. I run a podcast on family boundaries and maternal health. I'd love to talk to you about your experience, if you're open." Clara's breath caught. She hadn't meant for the post to reach that far. But part of her, the part that had spent years silently enduring her mother's subtle digs, her quiet sabotage, wanted to scream the truth out loud. But just as she began drafting a reply, a nurse came to the door. Her expression was hesitant. "Clara, there's something you should know. Your mother came back this morning." She tried to check in under a different name. Clara stood up, her pulse pounding. "She what?" "She used an old ID, said she was volunteering. Security flagged it. She's been removed, and a formal no-contact order is being processed now." Clara sat down hard in the chair beside Elias. Her mother had pretended to be someone else to get in. This wasn't just boundary pushing anymore, it was escalation. As Clara looked down at her son, so fragile and unaware, she felt something change in her. Not fear, not rage. Resolve. She opened her email again, clicked reply to the journalist. "I'm ready to talk. But not just for me. For every mother who's been made to feel crazy for drawing a line." Then she looked at Elias and whispered, "No more hiding." But later that night, as she tried to sleep with her hand against the incubator, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video, no sender name, just a file. She clicked it, and what she saw made her sit bolt upright. Her parents, standing outside the hospital, talking to a woman with a camera. Her mother's voice clear. "She's keeping our grandson from us. We're filing for visitation rights. This is far from over." The NICU was dim, lit only by the low glow of monitors, and a soft orange lamp over the nurse's station. But Clara couldn't hear any of it. Not the machines, not the murmurs, not even her own breath. Her mind was roaring with the echo of her mother's words in the video. "We're filing for visitation rights. This is far from over." It didn't feel real. The language was sharp, legal, performative, the kind of line you say for cameras, not family. Not for your daughter who hasn't slept more than 2 hours in a week. Not for a baby who hasn't left a glass box since birth. She played the video again. Her father stood behind her mother, arms crossed, silent but present. Always silent, always present, always pretending to be the balance when he was just her shadow. The reporter or vlogger, Clara couldn't tell which was eating it up. Nods, sympathetic murmurs, exaggerated gasps. A story was being written, and she wasn't even invited into the room where the script was being drafted. By morning, her inbox was flooded. The video had gone viral. Not just viral, it had been shared by a parenting page with over 2 million followers. The comments were worse than she could have imagined. Another narcissist mother using a baby as a weapon. So cruel to keep a newborn from his grandparents. CPS needs to step in. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. Every muscle in her body screamed to do something, yell, defend, explain. But she couldn't leave Elias. She wouldn't. Instead, she walked to the social worker's office and closed the door behind her. "They're filing something," Clara said. "Visitation. Can they do that? He's not even out of the NICU." The social worker didn't flinch. "They can try. But legally, unless you've been deemed unfit or incapable, you are the sole decision maker. A newborn with medical complications in NICU. Any court will defer to the mother's wishes, especially with hospital documentation of prior incidents." Clara nodded, swallowing the panic. "I want everything recorded, every entry, every incident, every attempt to access him." "We already are," the woman said gently. "We've flagged your case for legal protection. But Clara, you might want to speak to a lawyer? Not because I think you'll lose, but because you need someone on record, in case this gets uglier." And Clara knew it would. Later that day, she called Janice again. "They're going public," Clara said. "They're trying to force the system." Janice didn't sound surprised. "Of course they are. When your mother loses power in private, she goes public. She weaponizes sympathy." "I don't know how to fight this," Clara admitted. "I feel like I'm holding a glass of water in a hurricane." "You don't fight her, you stand with the truth. And you let the cracks in her mask show themselves." That night, Clara posted again. A photo, not of Elias, but of her hospital wristband, the timestamp, the name. The proof she was still here, still fighting. "I'm the one staying up at night with alarms blaring. I'm the one begging for updates, asking what every beep means. I'm the one who hasn't left this hallway in 12 days. If that makes me controlling, then yes, I'm controlling. I'm controlling everything I can to keep him alive. The post shattered through her feed. Thousands of shares. Comments flooded in. This time, more were on her side. Other mothers, nurses, people who had been called hysterical for trying to protect a child, but with the support came something else. A direct message from a stranger. A screenshot. Her mother had filed a public claim for grandparental access. It was real. Clara called the legal clinic the hospital recommended. She told the attorney everything, the violations, the video, the stranger who tried to sneak in under a false name. By the end of the call, she had legal representation and a temporary protective order for the hospital premises. But the lawyer said one thing that echoed louder than the rest. This is about more than access. This is about control. And they're not going to stop unless something stops them. Clara sat back in the recliner beside Elias. The soft hiss of oxygen filled the space. She looked down at her son and whispered, "You're not a prize. You're not a trophy. You're my son. And I'll burn every bridge to keep you safe." But she didn't know yet that her mother was about to play her final card. One Clara hadn't seen coming. A knock at the NICU door. Not a nurse, a woman, in a blazer. From Child Protective Services. The woman from CPS stood tall and composed. A folder clutched to her chest like a shield. Her eyes swept the NICU with clinical precision before settling on Clara. "Clara Jennings?" she asked softly. Clara nodded, heart pounding. "I'm here in response to a report filed alleging concerns for your newborn's well-being. I'd like to speak with you privately, if that's all right." It wasn't all right. Nothing about it was all right. But Clara nodded again. The way people nod when the world is tipping and they're trying to look steady. They moved to a small consultation room. The woman sat across from her, opened the folder, and began. "There's been an anonymous report suggesting that your emotional state may be interfering with the care of your son, that you've isolated yourself, refused reasonable family support, and may be creating a hostile environment for hospital staff." Clara blinked. "That's not true. None of it." The woman looked up. "Do you mind if I ask some questions?" Clara swallowed. "Go ahead. How many hours a day are you in the NICU?" "Every hour," Clara said. "Except when the nurses insist I sleep." "Do you engage with staff?" "Follow medical advice." "Yes. I know every nurse's name. I track his feeding schedule. I ask before I touch him. I wash my hands so much they bleed." The woman nodded slowly. "And your family? Have they visited?" "They were removed by hospital security," Clara said, her voice colder now. "They smuggled food into a sterile NICU, violated policy, argued with staff, then lied about it and blamed me." There was a long pause. The woman scribbled something down. "And, since then, have they attempted to contact you?" Clara pulled out her phone, opened the video, played the clip of her mother outside the hospital talking about visitation rights. "I've received threats, public smears, and they sent a stranger pretending to be a family friend to sneak in and see him without my consent." Another pause. Another scribble. "And how are you coping emotionally?" Clara let the silence sit. "I'm exhausted," she said finally. "I'm scared every second. But I am not unwell. I am not unstable. I am a mother trying to protect a baby who cannot speak or defend himself. That's it. That's all I'm doing." The woman nodded. "Slower this time. I'll need to speak with the medical team, review the file, observe for a bit. But based on this, I don't see cause for immediate concern." But the words hung in the air like smoke. Immediate concern. Not a clearance, not a promise, just a delay in judgment. When Clara returned to the NICU, she felt 100 eyes on her. Were the nurses judging her now? Had her parents' poison reached them too? The head nurse pulled her aside. "Just so you know," she said, "we told the CPS rep the truth. You've been cooperative, respectful, and focused entirely on Elias. Whatever's happening outside, we see what's happening in here." Clara nodded, biting back tears. But the worst wasn't over. That night, she received another message. This one from a blocked number. It was a voice memo. Her mother's voice, trembling, manipulative, surgical. "You can hate me. You can shut me out. But when the court hears how you denied your dying father a chance to meet his grandson, they'll see who you really are. We raised you, Clara. We protected you. We don't deserve this." It was a lie. Her father wasn't dying. He'd had high blood pressure for years. Nothing terminal. But her mother had always known how to bend facts just enough to make people flinch. Clara stared at Elias. The soft curve of his cheek, the way his fingers twitched even in sleep. Every instinct screamed to hide him, run, take him away from all of this, but she didn't run. She didn't hide, she posted. This time, not just words, a video. Her face, her voice, her truth. I didn't ask for this fight, but I won't be shamed into silence. My baby's not a pawn in a generational war. He is not their redemption. He is not their prop, and I am not unstable for protecting him. Am a mother doing what every mother should have the right to do? Say no when no is the only safe answer. The views exploded. Overnight, support poured in. Lawyers offered advice. Doctors shared anonymous affirmations. Mothers told their own stories, eerily similar ones. But deep in the comment threads, someone posted something that made Clara's blood run cold. A scanned letter. Legal stationery. Petition for emergency visitation, grant parental rights, citing imminent emotional harm due to denied access. Filed. Signed. Scheduled for hearing. In 72 hours. 3 days. That's all Clara had to prepare. 72 hours of pacing hospital corridors. Feeding Elias with trembling hands, meeting with a lawyer between vitals and visiting hours. The hearing had been expedited, classified as urgent due to what the petition claimed was irreparable, emotional damage to the child, caused by separation from extended family. The irony wasn't lost on Clara. Elias had never even been held by them. The emotional damage, if it existed at all, was hers to carry, and theirs to answer for. Her lawyer was blunt but calm. They're banking on public sentiment, on the court reacting emotionally. But the law is on your side, Clara. They'll have to prove neglect, or that your refusal is abusive, which it's not. Still, Clara couldn't breathe. The morning of the hearing, she sat beside Elias one more time, her fingers gently brushing the outside of the incubator. He was stronger now. He cried louder. He gripped her finger tighter. But he still hadn't left the NICU, and the idea that strangers in robes and suits could decide who entered his life before he ever even left. This ward, it made blood boil. I'll be back, she whispered to him. And when I am, no one will ever get to touch your world without going through me. At the courthouse, Clara sat at one table, her lawyer beside her. Across from them, her parents looked as polished and pathetic as always. Her mother wore soft blue, her hair curled into matronly waves. Her father wore a suit Clara had never seen before, as if dressing up could turn him into someone honorable. The judge, a tired, middle-aged woman with silver at her temples and a sharp gaze, opened the session. Her mother's attorney went first. She is not trying to undermine her daughter. She simply wants the opportunity to bond with her grandson, who is in a vulnerable medical state. Denying that bond, denying family can have long-term psychological consequences. Clara nearly laughed. Her mother had once gone 3 months without speaking to her over a missed birthday dinner. Now she was worried about bonding. Then it was Clara's turn. Her lawyer laid it out plainly. The hospital violations. The unauthorized visit. The attempt to sneak in. The CPS investigation that cleared Clara completely. The online smear campaign. Then Clara stood. I didn't come here to be pitied, she said. I came here because I was forced to. Because the people who raised me think love means access. That blood means entitlement. But it doesn't. My baby isn't a second chance for them to get parenting right. He's not theirs to fix, or flaunt, or post about. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I am not denying love. I am denying control. That's not the same thing. Love respects boundaries. Love doesn't weaponize public opinion. Love doesn't file legal motions after being told no. There was silence in the courtroom. Even her mother looked unsure now, the corners of her lips twitching, her face beginning to peel. The judge leaned forward. Have your parents expressed remorse for the hospital incident? She asked Clara. No, Clara said simply. They blamed me. They still do. And if the court were to grant supervised visitation, would that feel safe to you? Clara shook her head. No. Because I know how they operate. They test limits. They create chaos. Supervision won't stop the manipulation. Only distance can. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she folded her hands. I'll issue my ruling by the end of day. Court is adjourned. Back in the hallway, Clara finally let her legs tremble. She leaned against the wall, her lawyer's hand steadying her elbow. You did everything right, he said. No matter how she spins it online, that judge saw you. Clara nodded, but her mind was already back at the hospital. She needed to see Elias. Needed to remind herself that all of this was worth it. That afternoon, back in the NICU, she held him for the first time. The nurse placed him gently into her arms, skin against skin, wires trailing, monitors beeping steadily. Clara felt something break and reassemble inside her chest. He was warm, real. Hers tears streamed down her face. It was in that moment that the hospital administrator entered the room, holding a letter. "It's from the court," she said softly. Clara took it with shaking hands. She didn't open it right away. She looked at Elias, pressed her lips to his forehead, and whispered, "Whatever it says, I've already won." Then she broke the seal and read the ruling. But before she could say anything, the nurse rushed to her side, eyes wide. "Clara, I need you to come to the window." Now. Clara turned, heart seizing. Outside the NICU, standing behind the glass, were 6 strangers holding signs. One read, "Let Grandma in." Another, "Shame on you." Clara stared at the signs through the NICU window, her heart frozen in place. 6 people, strangers, holding poster boards with slogans and hashtags, cell phones out, filming, broadcasting her pain for a story they didn't understand. She didn't recognize any of them, but she recognized the look in their eyes. Self-righteousness, the thrill of being part of someone else's chaos. The nurses pulled the blinds closed. "Don't go out there," one of them said quietly. "Security is handling it." Clara didn't answer. She clutched Elias tighter to her chest. He stirred in her arms, letting out a soft sound that broke her concentration. Her body knew what to do: soothe him, rock gently, speak low. That was real. The signs were noise. Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. "Ruling is official. Petition denied. No visitation granted." Language was strong. Actions posed emotional harm to the mother and violated medical safety standards. "Congratulations. You're free. The word didn't feel light, it felt earned. It felt like the end of a storm so long, she'd forgotten what quiet could sound like. Her lawyer added one more line. "You can file a restraining order if you want to take this further. Based on this incident, I'd recommend it." Clara didn't respond. Not yet. She looked down at Elias. His eyelids fluttered. His tiny chest rose and fell. Still here. Still hers. The nurse came to take his vitals, and Clara stepped aside, her arms suddenly empty. The warmth of him lingered, though, like a second skin. She walked to the hallway, ignoring the nurse's protests, and looked through the narrow window pane at the group outside. Security was speaking with them now. One man had already been escorted away. Another was arguing. The signs had been lowered. Her mother was nowhere in sight. Of course not. She never got her hands dirty. She sent others to do that later. That evening, Clara posted a final message. Not a clapback, not a defense, just the truth. You don't get to call it love if you refuse to accept no. You don't get to call yourself a grandmother if your presence costs my son peace. You don't get to rewrite who I am, just because I stopped letting you control the story. My name is Clara. Not selfish, not unfit, not unstable, just Clara. And this is my son, not your redemption, not your legacy, just Elias. He will grow up knowing that protection is not cruelty, that boundaries are not hate, and that silence in the face of abuse is not love. And I will make sure of it. It went viral. But this time, the comments were different. Women wrote long, aching confessions about their own families. Nurses added stories of mothers fighting for respect in hospital corridors. Lawyers quoted her post in threads about autonomy and legal boundaries. Fathers shared tears. Siblings reconnected. Survivors named their own Claras. She wasn't just a headline now. She was a mirror. A wound. A warning. 3 days later, Elias was discharged. Still fragile, still small, but strong enough for the next chapter. As she wheeled him toward the exit, wrapped tightly in a blanket, the same hospital administrator who'd once delivered the court letter handed her a manila envelope. "What's this?" Clara asked, from one of the nurses. She didn't sign it. Just said it was for you. When the noise faded, Clara opened it once she reached the car. Inside was a single photo. Elias, asleep in her arms. No wires, no machines. Just peace, and on the back, one sentence written in careful script. "You were never the villain in this story. You were the shield." Clara pressed the photo to her chest. No more war, no more explanations, just her. And Elias and silence. Real beautiful, earned silence.